Hello and welcome to the inaugural episode in our special feature series, Tally Power of Simplicity presents Mera Business Meri Pehchaan, partnered by ET Now in association with Rajiv Talreja. In the wake of this pandemic, the country's small and medium enterprise sector is widely credited with our country's economic rebound. But what are some of the battles and bottlenecks that these SMEs themselves faced? To find out, we spoke to a series of small and medium enterprises across sectors ourselves. And likewise, to shed more light on the solutions and strategies that SMEs can avail in order to scale, sustain, and ultimately succeed, I'm joined by a highly distinguished panel of subject matter experts. Please allow me to introduce our guests. We have with us Joint Secretary AFI, Ministry of Micro, Small, and Medium Enterprises, Atish Kumar Singh. Business coach and author, Rajiv Talreja. Managing Director of Tally Solutions, Tejas Goenka. A warm welcome to all of our panelists and thank you for taking the time to speak with us. The first SME we spoke with on the show is Simco Auto, a Delhi-based automotive electrical parts manufacturer. Let's listen in on what they had to share.
Simco Auto Limited was founded in 1962 as a result of my great-grandfather's dream, which in retrospect was a reflection of every common man's dream. All the three generations before me dedicated their careers to rigorous R&D in order to fully comprehend the needs of the India's automotive industry and provide goods that far exceeded the industry's quality standards at the time. The difficulties were similar to those faced by many other businesses across various industries as a result of labor shortages in tier 1 cities, which resulted in low productivity at increased cost. Disruptions across global supply chains as well as numerous small businesses going belly up jointly affected both receivables and future sales. In simple words, this parallel of higher costs and lower revenues for a sustained period of time, almost 2 years, really strained and squeezed the innards of our business.
In our conversations with SMEs, we came to learn that they faced sort of the dual challenge of a severe labor shortage on the one hand, and a highly distressing financial situation in that they also faced a severe capital crunch on the other. Rajiv, I think I'm going to pose my first question to you. How might you guide an SME to get it right?
SMEs have always been proactive and adaptive. And I think during the pandemic, the key word that was buzzing around SMEs was pivot. Everybody was looking at how do they create a sustainable financial model to be able to sustain through that phase, especially the initial 60 days of the lockdown. There was a lot of uncertainty where people did not know how long this was going to last, how are they going to survive. So what I personally noticed was the first 60 days when the lockdown hit, there was a lot of internal creation that people went into. The proactive SMEs looked at it as time to solidify their systems and strategies, training their employees, engaging their teams. But as the days went by, the business sustenance, the financial sustenance became a very, very big question that was glaring at the SMEs. And most of them looked at a pivot direction where they altered their distribution channels to online. That's when you saw the birth of so many D2C brands going direct to consumer. Absolutely. You saw so many businesses becoming hybrid, where a manufacturer started trading, traders started adding their own products and brands. So there was so many changes that we saw predominantly around altering distribution channels, becoming more proactive in marketing and reaching out to more customers because you couldn't just survive on your existing customers. And I think those were some of the key changes that we saw happening during that phase.
Well, Atish, I want to switch directions then and come to you because all strategy aside, and all pivoting tactics aside, financing can become a huge impediment in the way of an SME achieving scale. And in periods of volatility in particular, sources of funding tend to dry up entirely. So for SMEs that, Atish, find themselves in that scenario, how might you guide them to take the first step? What are the avenues of financing that they can ultimately avail in order to become self-sustaining entities?
We have to look at, what is the major chunk of the funding which is required, which is, for the MSME. It's essentially happening for getting land or buildings and the machinery and the equipment and so on and so forth. Those are the biggest chunks of the investment and funding requirements for the MSME. Then you need, besides the fixed capital, you need to look at the working capital, the cash flow cycle. That's very, very important. So that is another area which needs to be addressed. And for the purposes of fixed capital, the ministry itself runs several schemes. Like there is a cluster development program where land is kind of made available to them, and other hard infrastructure made available to them. And there are several thematic interventions. And there's a plug-and-play scheme which is in the works, which is going to provide them with this kind of infrastructure. If you want to look at the equipment and machinery part, again, there are, besides the private players, the government itself runs several technology sectors where the equipment and machinery is provided to the MSME on rent. So since the funding to get the equipment and machinery is large and heavy, so the government buys you that machinery and equipment and gets you gives them out to the MSME on rent. And there's also raw materials, another problem area for the funding purposes. So right. The ministry has also set up something called a raw material bank where we get into bulk buying of raw material, and so that we get economies of scale and provide the raw material to different MSMEs as per the requirements. And last but not the least, if you look at the present architecture which is available, both in terms of the debt and equity, there are several things which are available and several things which need to be done, and let me tell you, in all of them, the government is putting in some kind of effort to get them going on the ground. Also, several interventions. We are not just looking at the traditional mainstream lending architecture. We are also trying to get into incentivizing and promoting the NBFCs, MFIs, small finance banks in a very, very big way. Put this into perspective. Another way that the government is going to help the funding process is by providing several credit guarantee regimes. There are already several available in the Pradhan Mantri Mudra Yojana or the CGTMSE. We are also contemplating throwing open the credit guarantee regime into the private sector.
The next SME we caught up with is family-owned and operated food product manufacturer, VP Vedekar and Sons from Mumbai. Here's a glimpse of their story.
My great-grandfather started one grocery shop in this Girgaon area in year 1910. My grandfather was very enterprising person. He started spices in year 1917 and later on pickles, manufacturing of pickles in 1922. In the month of March, around March 2020, the pandemic started and lockdown was imposed. It was our totally manufacturing season. Mangoes are available during those days only, and we could not procure mangoes, or the market for our main product ready pickle mix was also hit because we could not distribute this product throughout our market. This created total disruption of the business, and then labor was also not available, distributors were also not functioning, salesmen was not able to going to market to procure the orders, and transportation was also totally disrupted, and there was no transport company was available, and thus we had to manage to sell our products to various places through our vehicles. The government gave some moratorium on our loan repayment and interest payment. Then some relaxations were given in GST payments and return filing. Then these various departments give license renewals and all were they gave longer time for this renewal of license, etc.
Well, very interesting. And I've got a follow-up question for you there, Tejas, because very frankly, the contribution of the SME sector, whether it's with respect to 30% of the GDP or 60% of domestic exports, it's undisputed. It's entirely unquestionable. But that said, what more would you like to see from the government by way of support for our 63 million SMEs nation?
Outlining the tens or hundreds of progressive steps that are available for the MSME. And I'd probably cut them into three things that what we could do more. Sure. One is, I think, on awareness. I think there's a lot that we can do together as a community to help each other become aware of what the government is doing. I think there's a lot that can be done there. The second is that we do still have, I would say, niggles or irritants that we can kind of get rid of. Some of these are all compliance oriented. There are several steps already being taken to simplify them, but I still think there's a lot that can be done on that respect. And I'm saying that because a business owner's time is what is actually the most precious, right? We all have 24 hours in a day. And the question is, where does that time go? If it ends up going in non-productive activities like compliance, it prevents us from focusing on growth, which is the one area which I would probably suggest. And the third, I think the government has done so much in extending credit. And the MSMEs that we've spoken to have some sort of fear of, sometimes taking this credit. And I think that there's a bit that we can do together to change that narrative.
One of the unforeseen, byproducts of the pandemic has been this intensification of the Make in India movement. And now purchasing homegrown goods versus international brands is no longer a question of affordability or quality or accessibility. It's become all about consumer ethics at this point. So what has that meant for SMEs and the possibilities and doors it opens up for them?
So I look at this entire initiative and of the government's Atmanirbhar program and the push towards self-reliance as a great opportunity for the MSMEs. And we have a number of great things happening on the ground. We just did a hackathon for the ideas under the MSME innovation scheme, and it was open for about a fortnight. And would you believe it? We got 5,128 ideas. Wow. We have, that is the kind of, stuff which is available on the ground. It's just that these ideas are unable to see the light of the day. And of course, the ministry is, working on those ideas and how can we, convert them. So the Atmanirbharta program in, different shapes, there is a huge package which has been announced by the government for the MSMEs. There is the production linked incentive, which has got 10 different, sectors which have been identified for the purpose of promotion on the self-reliance, front. There is a ton of things happening on the export promotion front. There is a lot of incentivization of the structures, incentivization of the units which are going to, get into the space. A lot of hand-holding, a lot of bilateral agreements are going on with different countries. Then we are also, developing a global intelligence marketing system to help the MSMEs identify, different markets for different products where they have the competitive advantage and how we can get into a zero tariff regime with them and how we can, work on the non-tariff, barriers over there. The ethics part of it, yes, there is a lot of, thought on that front, but we must realize and understand that we need to put an effort on, on the quality front. We need to make our products very, very globally competitive in terms of quality. So the ministry runs a zero effect, zero defect program for the purposes of quality. So which basically means that there should be zero effect on the environment and the quality production exercise system should be such that the defects are minimized or are become zero totally.
And the final SME we caught up with on the show is Farm Route Agritech, a Bengaluru-based agriculture brand that is revolutionizing the sector as we know it.
After 2014, when you started the company, you identified the problems with the farmers. We're particularly focused on precision farming, where there's imbalanced nutrition, and particularly on crops like horticulture and floriculture and vegetables. We have developed our team for dealers in almost South India, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Andhra Pradesh and Telangana. By end of last year, we achieved almost 40 crores of our turnover. Particularly in agriculture and allied sectors has not faced much problems like other segments, manufacturing and service sectors. Since it is comes under Essential Commodity Act, there we got a permission and easily moved the material. Timely, we have served the farming community. Without digital platform, we could not able to manage anything. This recent years, there is a digital platform is taking its own way to come out of the all COVID issues, lockdown effects. Digital platform has given a main platform to monitor our warehousing system effectively, movements effectively, and our team across India, we are very well managed with a digital platform. Earlier, we used to conduct offline meetings. Now, after these digital platforms, we are well utilized and we have made easy available access to our team and farming community. Without digital platform, would have not achieved, would not come out of that COVID-19 issues.
If we talk technology for a moment, Rajiv. I think all SMEs have come to terms with the fact that there is no dodging the digital highway. You've got to hop on. But the IT complexities are very real. So for SMEs that find themselves in that scenario, who are struggling to achieve digital transformation, either with respect to seeing the merit of it or implementing it, how might you guide them to take the first step?
When it comes to technology, there's a lot spoken about the reluctance of acceptance of technology by MSMEs, which I would say is the onus on the technology creator rather than the MSME or the end user. Because at the end of the day, MSMEs have a thought process of what's the outcome of the technology. It's not whether it is a must to run everything on technology. They are very objective focused. So they're saying, if my work becomes more efficient and simpler, I'm happy to adapt. If my work becomes more complex and mundane, then I will discard that technology. So I would put the onus back on the technology creators to keep it simple, to keep it adaptive, and to keep it objective to fulfill a particular business objective. What happens is from a tech creator's point of view, they're obviously fascinated with what's possible with technology, and they go on the spree of creating innovations, ideas, apps, all kinds of things.
Right.
But say, for example, so many brands use the medium of apps to engage with their customers and channel partners. They built indigenous apps saying our customers and channel partners will be put on this one platform and this will become a medium of engagement. And so many of those apps failed because the simple behavior of the consumer was that they will not open a third-party app. They would rather open a generic app like WhatsApp. And MSMEs understood that. They built dealer-distributor communities on WhatsApp groups and broadcast lists. So I think it's about understanding the behavior and integrating technology in the natural behavior and making sure that the technology has an end purpose. It's not just for the sake of being driven by tech.
Rajiv has just said the onus is on the technology creators and not on the customers they serve. Let's also be realistic in that, for those customers, managing their technology footprint is incredibly challenging. It's time intensive on the one hand, it's capital intensive on the other hand. It detracts from the day-to-day objectives, of the business. So if the onus is in fact on the technology creator, are they incorporating this everyday real-time SME feedback into their ideology and innovation?
Onus of creating technologies that are adaptable to the MSME is on the creator, certainly not on the customer at all. And I think there's so much out there. It can certainly be overwhelming. But finally, I think what you have to look at is don't stop your will to try, because I think I've loved that in the last 35 years that we've been around. We've seen MSME owners much more forward thinking than we anticipate. And it's amazing. It's amazing to see the energy. So I think that's number one. So don't stop. But I think the one thing that can confuse the attractiveness of it at the start, and then you invest in that attractiveness. But what starts happening is exactly like Rajiv said, it doesn't adapt to you. And the system actually has to adapt to you, because an MSME's lifeblood is actually to manage day to day, is managed month to month. And if customers say something, they do that. If suppliers say something, they do that. And the process modifies itself as per the situation. And if your product or the solution or the technology that you're adopting doesn't allow you to do that, it becomes very difficult for you to sustain in that. And it will force you to change your ways, which I think in general starts becoming a little difficult.
Coming to my final question, which I pose to all three panelists, as the public sector and the private sector sort of join shoulders to carry this weight of designing solutions meant for today's SME, are there priorities, sort of a list and a mix of becoming profitable, keeping an edge over the competition, achieving digital transformation, ensuring seamless 24/7 operations? So much is changing in terms of the reprioritization for the SME. So how do you take that into account in designing solutions for the future?
The priorities of SMEs have always been twofold. Number one, achieve profitability. Second, achieve scalability and sustain the profitability at scale. I truly believe everything else, digitization, financing, everything is a means to this end of profitability and scalability. SMEs are keeping the business culture sane in the country by prioritizing profitability. They are making sure that there are businesses that are built on fundamental value creation and not just mythical valuations. They are the highest job providers in the country. They are the highest taxpayers of the country. They are the best solution creators whose products or services are used in our everyday lives. So their priority is just profitability and scalability, and all they expect from the environment is there's so much happening in our country. We just need to curate the right education, aggregate the right opportunities for them, and make sure that they get access to all these innovations. I think that's one thing that the SMEs need, the more of coming together as an SME. If you have to draw a leaf and learn from the startup ecosystem, there's this one unit feeling about the startup ecosystem, but somehow the MSME ecosystem is like the scattered enterprises. I think that's what the MSMEs need, and we need to celebrate these true heroes of our economy a lot more.
What I want to tell all the MSMEs through this dialogue, there is a formalization process. There is an inclusion process available today. You can be in the formal process through Udyam registration. You can be to the Companies Act. You can be through the KYC of the banking system. You could be in the GST regime, and so on and so forth. The problem is those numbers are still pretty less. The Udyam registration is about 89 lakh MSME units. The one-person companies is something like 14,000, 15,000. And but the banking sector has got several. The KYC, the people who MSME accounts are far too many. But they haven't joined this, the Udyam or the Companies Act. If you want to attain more profits, if you want to attain scale, don't be fearful of joining the formal process. A lot of people think there will be a huge compliance burden on me. You please look at what we've been trying to do. We've cut down so many laws. We've trashed out laws. We've cut down the compliance burden. There's 100 things happening on the ease of doing business. The tax regime has been made so much more simpler. I feel very, very strongly and firmly that the positives and the pluses of joining the formal process will get you much more than the negatives which you think or imagine are there.
After all of what we've discussed, I strongly do believe, and I'm a very big optimist in general, that we do have a very bright future. I think the MSMEs of this country have a very, very bright future in general. We are at our heart and soul, we are problem solvers. So we get by.
Well, thank you. All of this is very encouraging and of tremendous value. And with that, the inaugural episode in our special feature series, Tally Powered Simplicity presents Mera Business Meri Pehchaan, powered by ET Now, in association with Rajiv Talreja, comes to a close. Thank you for sharing such a rich range of insights from your individual, personal, and professional journeys. And thanks for watching.
As a part of Mera Business Meri Pehchaan, we present a masterclass series with business coach and author Rajiv Talreja. For more information on registering for the webinars, please log on to www.mbmp.in.